All right, so I know that I've been saying something is all you need a lot, but this time it is honestly different, and QLoRA is truly all you need. For me, I have personally been long annoyed at how cold, boring, robotic, and just sort of dead the current state of AI conversations are. What I really want is a little personality, a little spice, and I want an AI to sometimes make me laugh. The problem is, where do you get enough data such that a model is both useful and fun like this at the same time? Not only that, but training such a model from scratch takes months and millions of dollars on arguably hundreds of millions of dollars of infrastructure. You could also do a traditional fine tune, but even then you're looking at weeks and tens of thousands of dollars. So enter LoRA, or low-rank adapters, from Microsoft Research. The concept here is actually based on research from Facebook at the time, now Meta, of course, and that showed that as you pre-train models, what you're really doing is lowering dimensionality. The idea here is that after a model has been pre-trained, you can actually update a condensed version of the weight matrix in fine tuning, and that's for LoRA, or low rank adapters. So that research from Microsoft, that's based on that research from Meta. The LoRA paper showed that you could actually reduce trainable parameters by up to 10,000 times and still be effective for fine tuning. The proposition from LoRA is that we can actually represent that exact same delta weight matrix as we train in far less dimensions, assuming a pre-trained model. So you can't just simply do this right out of the gate. You need pre-training to lower those dimensions. Imagine you have a weight matrix that is 10,000 by 10,000. That's 100 million values that are contained there. If you wanted to calculate the delta weights, that would be calculating 100 million delta, weight values. LoRA, or low-rank adapters, asks, what if rather than having that single delta weight matrix, what if we had two matrices instead, A and B? And then we just lower the dimensionality of those. So imagine matrix A is 10,000 by 10, and matrix B is 10 by 10,000. Each of those is only 100,000 values, totaling to 200,000, far less than 100 million. And then, what if we multiply these with A dot B? We have ourselves a 10,000 by 10,000 delta weight matrix. That original LoRA paper and subsequent research has shown that this is apparently a valid way to fine-tune a pre-trained model. And this means many things for us. It means way less calculations are required, so that training is actually much faster. But it also means that the memory required to do this, like fine-tuning, is also far less as well. And then researchers from the University of Washington slapped quantization on top for QLoRA. And quantization is just a lower precision, a much, again, lighter weight, even less memory is required, and all that. And the researchers from Washington also graced us with a wonderful GitHub repo packed with fantastic information and the code to actually train your QLoRA models. The beauty of QLoRA, with all the research backing it up, is that you can fine-tune models with very few samples, again, as low as something like 1,000 samples, and in some cases even less, especially if you're maybe trying to fine-tune more for like a structure or something like that. You can use any data you want in this fine-tuning step. It literally, all you're doing is making a generative model generate whatever the heck you want in whatever the heck format you want. I made a chatbot here, but you could make next line code predictors or anything else in the realm of generative text. The possibilities truly are just endless here. For me personally, all I really wanted to do was like a slight style shift of the Llama 2 7B chat model. So I went ahead with using Reddit data, and more specifically, the Wall Street Bets subreddit from the 2017 era. There are many things to consider with your dataset, and you could probably capture the character, for example, of a variety of subreddits, if that's what you wanted. But again, you can do anything, and that's what makes QLoRA so cool, because you need such a small amount of data. arguably you can just make up your own data set. You could hand create your own data set. It's truly just awesome. For the data set that I used, I created and uploaded the Wall Street Bets subreddit data to Hugging Face, so feel free to use that data set if you want. I did also have issues with the sort of end sequence token, and it was just like never getting generated. And to my understanding, with Llama 2, or really all these Llama 2 models, they terminate or have an end of sentence token that is just a closing tag like a /s. And from my understanding, your data, your training data, does not need to include that /s. I did try both with training data that did just include it anyway, since that's what the generator, or like the tokenizer, knows. And in both cases, it just never worked. It just never stopped generating. When I first trained the model, I actually went to go do a test inference, and I like left for a little bit, and I came back and it was still doing the exact same thing. It had been doing it for like 45 minutes, just trying to generate one sample. So it just never reached a stop token. It was very, very strange. So anyway, I ended up making my own data set with very clear, comment, response, end tags, but these are not the traditional ones, and you would probably need to add this maybe to your tokenizer or do something so that the model actually knows how to stop. You can do all kinds of different stop tokens and stop sequences and stuff like that, but mostly I was just trying to get an idea for how QLoRA worked. So this is what I ended up going with, but feel free to make changes. Like I said, you can do anything here. Also, as you can see, my data set here is 118,500 rows or samples, but really, truly, you can do this with far less. I was seeing results after just like 20 steps of like, let's say, I think the batch was like 40, something like that. So 800 samples, like truly just, it doesn't take much at all. I would also probably suggest that you prune down even this data set that I'm using here and further kind of curate it for whatever it is you're looking for. Again, everything up to this point was just me, my first pass through QLoRA, just trying to figure out, how does this work? Does it really work? How could it possibly work? It just didn't seem like it really could work. So I just wanted to like have a data set and just feed it through. So anyway, keep that in mind. This is like a terrible data set. I've done literal no effort other than just simply pairing up comments and responses. It is also worth noting that this model will say things that are culturally no longer seen as totally acceptable, and likely even in 2017. We're not seen as acceptable by everyone. This is also fixable with removing things from the training data set that you might deem to be offensive. My objective here was to just make a more fun chatbot and just do kind of research into doing QLoRA on a data set, and I really did kind of want a data set that was far from the norm of talking, purely so I could know, does this actually work? And of course, in my research for this project, I stumbled on Yannick's GPT 4chan model that is one of the very few models that have ever been actually banned from Hugging Face, as well as receiving what I would best refer to as a letter of disgust from 360 various researchers and such at various institutions, condemning Yannick's deployment of such a model. Didn't look like that was mostly, it was like more about like the training of that model, or it didn't look like it was about the training of the model, but more so about the way he went about just releasing it and deploying it into the wild on the poor, just unsuspecting people of 4chan. Anyway, I'm going to try. My attempt was not to make like an offensive bot or a bot that would fit into the politically incorrect section of 4chan. And instead, I really just wanted a bot that was just kind of fun. And that's what I'm really going for. But do keep in mind, this one will say things that you might not find appropriate or to your taste. All right, so we have data. And again, all I did to compile this data was I just took comments and replies, and I made a little sample of them, and I stuffed them into a data set, and I uploaded it to Hugging Face. Really, no effort is involved here. I would encourage you to look at exactly what each sample is. It's just like a big JSON object of, basically, the key of sample, the value of that exact sample, and that's it. And you can upload that as a Hugging Face data set and plug it into the script that I'm using here. I also know that I've kind of stressed this already, but I really think this is so important, is that the format that I'm using here is not required. This is not the original format of Llama 2 7B chat, although I attempted to use their format. It's just that it just wasn't really work. It was never reaching that end of sequence token. And so then I just decided, hey, I'll just use these like the pound, 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 and then that. And I found that it did learn that like really quick and easy. You could continue to use the Llama 2 7B format. Again, I don't know why it wasn't reaching a stop token though. And like I said, I tried both, including the stop token in the actual training data, which I don't actually think is you're supposed to do. And then I did it without. And in both cases, no matter how much I trained, no matter how much I tried, it just never found that stop token. So if anybody knows like why it never reached the end, feel free to please do let me know. Also, I never did any multi-turn examples. So there was no like comment, 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 reply, or comment, reply, comment, reply. So there was no like history of discussion in any of my samples. They were all comment, reply. I think for a better bot, you would probably want to do multi-turn. But in my testing, this did not really seem too important. But I would say that as the context expanded and there were like multiple comment, reply as I built out the prompt just in testing, it seemed that the bot was slowly straying from the fine tune and going back to the original llama character. But really hard to say, and plenty of times it does not. And so I think it stays just not as full or something like that. Anyway, more research required there. But moving along. Like I said, the data set is not great, and I can't stress enough how little effort I put into making this data set, and it still worked. Now, all the cool and smart kids are using QLoRA.py these days, it seems. But when I was learning, I found QLoRA.py to be a little unwieldy and just not totally clear what was happening. I couldn't look at it and understand what was going on, and that was kind of not useful to me at the time. So instead, I used a notebook on that exact same repo that I think more clearly broke down every step of the process. So I recommend you probably start there, then maybe, graduate to QLoRA.py. Even this notebook just simply kind of trains the model for like 10 steps, I want to say, and then just stops. So what I did was I modified that notebook a little bit too, basically to the point where every n steps, the model would be sampled on some prompts. I think I ended up with like 30 or 40 prompts, and then save both the model and the responses to those prompts to, files and stuff like that so that I could review them later and then just train it overnight. One thing to note is every time that you do this, I didn't realize it until later when I was looking at the tensor board. The trainer that they're using has a weight decay, even though it's not set there. I didn't even know that like a trainer, I guess maybe the default trainer with Hugging Face has weight decay in it. So every time I run that trainer, I'm like resetting the learning rate, and then it decays down, and then it jumps back up, and then it decays down, and then it jumps back. And sometimes you actually want this behavior, but if it's not intended, it was a mistake. So just to keep that in mind as well, that my method here is no good because the weight or the learning rate is decaying, then resetting, then decaying, then resetting. It did still learn. Loss did actually still continue going down and all that, but again, something to keep in mind. But also, I've said it a few times, no matter how terribly I did this, the end result still worked. To actually do the training, I used an H100 server on the Lambda cloud. Now, because their GPUs are so cheap, like half the price of basically everyone else, they are often not available. So you can use my GPU sniper to snag one via the API if you like. They also have other GPUs, but pretty much almost always there's nothing available. And so you have to be able to snipe. I will say though that to train like QLoRA on at least Llama 2 7B, for example, you can totally do it on like an A10, or those are very frequently available. So you could definitely do that. But if you want to snipe an H100 or something like that, I have a script for you. And then I also have a simple shell script, say that 5 times fast, that you can also use that just installs all the base packages that you're going to need to kind of get started here. So feel free to use that if you want. With the H100 on Lambda, I was actually able to do QLoRA fine tuning. I did a lot of testing and changing things around and stuff like that. So I ended up spending about a day or so or two on this project. But the actual time to like QLoRA a model is a matter of just hours to what I would describe as fully QLoRA train, or fully QLoRA fine tune rather, a model. It is shocking how fast you get results with QLoRA. And of course the H100 GPU is also quite fast. But it's just, I'm still just blown away by how fast, easy, and just simple QLoRA fine tuning really is. I think I'm late to the QLoRA party as I like started diving into all this. I was aware of it, but I just had never done it. And I think that this is like something that probably a lot of people are not paying attention to. And I think QLoRA, at least in terms of fine tuning and doing everything so lightweight, I think there's big things coming for this kind of style of training models. But wait, there's more. This is where things get even more interesting than I've said even up to this point. The model that you save as you train, this is what you refer to as the adapter. And it's actually the smaller condensed version, essentially. And the adapter is what you use with the model when you actually go to perform inference. Now, the size of this adapter, though, for a 7B model is a mere 160 megabytes. Now, this alone opens the door to all kinds of crazy applications. All you do is attach this adapter to the model, and then boom, you have that new fine-tuned model's behavior. And this is what's leading to the current project that I've been working on with the group at Skunkworks, where we're actually training a mixture of experts, where the experts are these QLoRA adapters that you can then just kind of switch around. So rather than, say, like fine-tuning a bunch of 7B models, and each fine-tuned 7B llama model being 6 gigs of RAM or 6 gigs of memory, either on your GPU or in RAM, you can instead have each expert, each fine-tuned Llama 2 model is only 160 or 200 megabytes. Much smaller, much smaller. Not to mention, this also means really you could get even smaller than that. If you're willing to raise the number of experts but decrease the model size, you can actually have tons of experts. Most people use models and they don't, like when you're using GPT-4 is capable of all kinds of realms of education and knowledge and all that. You're probably, every time you interact with GPT-4, you're probably really only using like 1% or less of GPT-4's actual knowledge. So if you could instead just swap out these adapters, and swapping them out is extremely fast. Again, this opens up a lot of doors that I think really up to this point have never really been considered or even been a possibility at all. But back to our project here. Imagine that you see some outputs for your model that you actually like. You can actually run the model in its quantized form with that adapter right away. But if you want to share that model and allow other people to run it at whatever precision they want, or to be able to convert it to whatever precision they want, then you're going to probably want to release the full model. So for this, we're going to need to dequantize and we need to merge. So to do that, I used the following code. When I had used this code, it actually wasn't saving the final like merged model. But it looks like upon reading this script right now, it looks like it's actually been updated to do that. So just keep your eyes peeled, make sure it's actually doing it. But from what I can tell, it looks like it actually is. So then from here, you're free to upload that model to Hugging Face and share it with your friends and all that. So I've actually done just that. I uploaded the adapters and full models for the Wall Street Bets fine-tunes of Llama 2 7B and 13B. I did both of these models. I found, to be honest, 7B and 13B to be very, very similar in terms of like my analysis of how the fine-tuning went. So anyway, use whichever one you want or whichever one you find interesting, or don't use them at all. I don't actually expect these models to get very much use. They were just something I wanted to do and try. I think I would want to improve these quite a bit before people really start using using these models. That said, the resulting model in both of these cases in general is a little more, as the kids say, based and has a little more character. It's a lot more, it is opinionated. It's a 0 to 1 step in being opinionated, which is awesome. I want models that, I don't know, feel like, I hate to use the phrase like feels like a real person or humanizes the bot, because not in like a creepy way, it's just in a friendly way, right? I want my AI to be friendly in the way of feeling human, not in a creepy way, but it's hard for me to put it into words, but I just feel like right now when we talk to these AI, it is so just, they're like dead and cold, and that's not fun. I want to interact with fun AI, you know? It just feels more realistic. Also of note, these are still just 7B and 13B models. Those models in general aren't really fantastic models right out of the box. Although imagine if you had hundreds of these adapters and you could switch them around. Anyways, here are some pretty good examples, starting with a multi-turn conversation. Again, this is a type of conversation that wasn't even included in the training data and is using this brand new format. And this format is not a format that Llama 2 knows at all, but yet it still works. Even though it was only trained on one turn of comment, reply, you are actually able to continue building comment and replies. If you're curious about the code that I used to build that prompt, I also have shared 2 spaces. One is for the 7B Wall Street Bets chat, and the other one is for 13B, but it's literally the same code. The only difference is the model that I'm using. So in this multi-turn conversation, the other thing I just really like about this is it actually has opinions. Like, I just want a model, like when I ask a question, I want more of a solid type of answer back. The conversation itself also just feels more realistic, like you're actually chatting with another person rather than some chatbot that's been aligned to have no real opinion or thoughts or cares or interests or anything like that at all. They're just so lifeless normally. I want a model to have a little enthusiasm sometimes. Here's another good one from the training samples that I really liked. Rather than just sort of beating around the bush, the model is just straight up and honest feeling. It does not feel like some sort of PR or legal rep of some corporation. And sometimes this model just makes me bust out laughing on the topic of a certain company's Apache 2 license change to a non-commercial license mid-project after public contributions and so on. I asked this AI what it thought about a move like that, and the answer just made me die laughing. It's just funny. And I don't know, there's just something about the lack of emotion and feeling and a little bit of comedy, a little bit of sarcasm that is just not present in the current models that we have right now. And I might even argue that some of that lack of what people might call creativity or fun or play is the result of this sort of alignment that we're so obsessively just going crazy about. Like, I just want to see more fun models. That's all. I'm not saying this model is the best model or even the best version of what I was trying to achieve here. But one thing that really has been bothering me just so long is just, these boring and lifeless models. Yeah, I don't want models to be overly abrasive or rude. I'm sorry if my model has offended you, but I do like a little bit of character, and I hope people make models with a little more character and color than really what we have today. And I really just hope models can genuinely make me and other people laugh rather than, sound like some sort of corporate PR or something like that. I'm also extremely bullish on QLoRA fine-tuning and some of the other emergent capabilities with architectures that manipulate this ability to attach and swap around QLoRA adapters, these like expert adapters in theory. And I'm finally finding myself to be excited about smaller models again. We've seen that like Llama 2 7B is very performant even when compared to models a year ago of 100+ billion parameters. And I think that we're closing in on models that can comfortably run on people's phones, literally on their phone, in their pocket, like off, no data, that kind of stuff, and actually be useful. So I hope to see more there as well. If you want to learn more about neural networks and how they work, check out the Neural Networks from Scratch book at nnfs.io. Anyway, that's all for now. I'll see you guys in another video.